Circus of the Dead. First off, the title of this movie is amazing. It really lets you know what you were in for. It has clowns in it, and it has dead people. So it's kind of like a circus of the dead. When I finished this film, I mean, that realisation blew me away. I mean, it's up there with When Harry Met Sally, because in that film, Harry literally met Sally. And the film is about that time. Or Footloose, you know, about the song Footloose.
Gotta cut loose, footloose.
I say down with titles like What's Eating Gilbert Grape, which features literally no cannibalism whatsoever. Or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which, come on, let's face it, it makes you start thinking before you've even pressed play. The world needs more Big Trouble in Little China, where, you know, there was...
No questions, just get out of here, Jack, get out of here!
some Big Trouble in Little China. Or I was a teenage werewolf. Yes. Thank you. You were. Circus of the Dead. So good. Now, on to the movie, which opens with the John Wayne Gacy quote. Clowns can get away with murder. And if the title hadn't given you a heads up of what is about to proceed here, well, surely you are in no doubt now. After a brief introduction to the townsfolk, we are straight in with the gore. And this is done with bloody splendid gusto, as we see a group of sadistic clowns torture a man in what appears to be a dilapidated dressing room. And it is here we first meet Papa Corn, the leader of the outfit, played with incredible conviction by Bill Obert Jr. And boy, does he love a stapler. This performance has been likened to, or rather compared to, Terrifier's Art the Clown. Which I feel is a bit of a lazy comparison and can only really be there because Art the Clown is the greatest horror clown ever created, followed by Captain Spaulding and Wrinkles. There is not a lot else similar here, really. I mean, yeah, they're both clowns, but that's about it. Where Art the Clown is quite obviously a psychopath, Papa Corn is more of a sociopath, knowing full well that the naughtiness he embarks on is evil and twisted as he switches from dastardly menacing comments to socially acceptable banter. This is a stunning performance. By the way, clowns are the worst, aren't they? I mean, yeah, they're great for horror fans, but outside of that, does the job really exist? The only real-life clowns I've seen were in the documentary Capturing the Freedmans, and let's face it, that did very little to enhance their reputation. Does anyone know a clown? Honestly, like, if you do, please tell me. It must be the least revered job in the world. Nobody likes you. Anyway, we are soon introduced to our main players here. Chanel Ryan as Tiffany Johnson, the archetypal Scream Queen, and who is as wonderful as ever, and Parrish Randall as Donald Johnson. Spoiler, her soon-to-be widowed husband. Parrish Randall will go on to not only rival Chanel Ryan when it comes to screaming, but I'd be surprised if he's not soon mentioned in the same conversation as Private Willem, the Sheb Woolley-voiced Hollywood trademark screamer. Maybe it'll soon be the Donald Scream. Yeah, I like that. For a multitude of reasons. Only one of them political. P.S. Yes, there is a lot of screaming in this movie. Like, a lot. Now, as previously alluded to, I'm not over familiar with the circus. You know, in real life. What do they do there? I was always under the impression it was about oversized men on tiny little bicycles going across a tightrope and jumping into tiny little bowls of water, or being fired out of a cannon. I was unaware of the fact that the typical audience member demands a lot of blood. which is on show here as they all whoop and holler as a bunch of clowns, led by one looking particularly Hitlerish, proceed to beat a man to near death and prod him with cattle prongs. I guess times have changed since Disney was in charge. Well, aside from the Hitler aspect. Allegedly. Now, I have to say, there are some truly horrendous moments in this movie. And I mean horrendous in a good way, if you like this sort of thing. Which I do. The scene with Papa Corn up against the window as Tiffany Johnson gets her rocks off is truly grim.
Yeah? Come to the circus, bitch! Come to the circus, bitch!
The mobile phone in the stump of the neck. The policeman being literally obliterated by a passing car. The literal skull loving.
What's your matter? You lost that loving feeling? Too bad I haven't.
All moments of brilliantly executed low-budget gore. I do have one reservation, however. I am absolutely fine with violence in film. I can distinguish quite easily between the art and reality. Violence against anyone, apart from animals. I can't stand the violence against animals. I literally had to leave the room at the beginning of John Wick and Tyrannosaur and Red, and I basically reached an unquantifiable and unknown level of depression in Watership Down. So yeah, violence against people doesn't really bother me. However, I do kind of like to know what I'm expecting if said violence is going to go over the top. For example, Last House on the Left. The synopsis literally alerts you to the fact that you're going to be witnessing some pretty horrific acts of violence against women. The same with I Spit on Your Grave, and the reputation of straw dogs precedes it. So, I was kind of taken aback by the amount of rape in this movie. It was somewhat unexpected. Although handled with fair characterisation and much of it occurring off-screen, I did feel it wandered a little too far into, we've got a woman here. What do we do with her? Well, I guess we sexually assault her. So maybe this review will help to serve as a little bit of a trigger warning. That being said, you do not go into a movie like this without expecting a certain amount of bombastic torture. Maybe I'm being a little oversensitive in my woke age, but no, I stand by it. Anyway, on the whole, this is a blinding debut by Billy Pon. Obviously comparable with Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects. I actually think it has some moments in it which could be considered alongside other cult classics such as Electra Glide in Blue and Streets of Fire. The cinematography here is actually some of the best I've seen in low-budget splatter. Billy Pon clearly has an eye for his art, and the awareness of his audience in the main is truly impressive. After finishing this, there is literally no way I wasn't going to go straight onto IMDb to find out what else he's been involved in. I just hope that some of his work and his future work will be a lot more readily available in the UK. Take note, Dread Central. Get it over to the UK. He deserves it, the crew deserve it, the entire cast deserves it, and we deserve it. Is this movie for everyone? No, certainly not. But horror never is. For me, however, I can imagine back in the days of VHS, if this movie had been released then, that tape would have been passed around all the bigger kids at school, until it had been whittled down to a wobbly nightmare, where that tracking feature on your video player would simply stand no chance. And I still would have begged and pleaded to get my hands on it. I even would have been willing to put up with a fair amount of bullying, just to be allowed the chance to sit in somebody's front room as their parents went out and this movie was clunked into the tape deck. And that is a sincerely heartfelt accolade that I bestow upon Circus of the Dead. The fact that I've seen this, well, it makes me feel like one of the cool kids. Laters.
I did that.